Forsaken, a somewhat niche game that only brings in around 200,000 people per day, is a game that I enjoy a lot myself, indicated by my possibly unhealthy amount of time spent on the game. But there's definitely a lot of issues with the game. Brushing aside things like the drama, the fandom, and the management of the game itself, we'll be focusing on things that are actually in the game. Hey everyone, Red Raz here, and today we'll be talking about my gripes with Forsaken in no particular order. I'll keep each point somewhat concise so that this video isn't too long, and I know I said I'll focus on things in the game, but there's a couple of things that aren't in the game that I still want to talk about. That being said, let's move on to my first gripe with Forsaken. 007 and 7, who I'll be referring to as 7 and 7, has a kit that focuses largely on deception. Many aspects of it, such as clone, pathfinding, and Kogui, rely on his passive, Dex. At a glance, there's nothing wrong with his passes, but the more you start to play him, you start to notice an issue, being that survivor spawns on some maps are just not good for him. Take Underground War for example, which, trust me, I have some things to say about this map later, only has 2 survivor spawns, both being on the same side of the map and relatively close to each other. Maps like Underground War work at a pizza place, and Ultimate Assassin's Grounds limit 7 and 7's effectiveness depending on where he is on the map, whilst maps like Brandon Works work great for him because survivor spawns are nicely spread out, making him effective no matter where he is on the map. An easy fix for this is just to remove the survivor part of Dex and just make it any spawn, including the killer spawn. That way, it makes them much more effective on maps such as Underground War, Ultimate Assassin's Grounds, and work at a pizza place. Speaking of 7 and 7, let's talk about skins, particularly milestone skins. Not the normal skins, since this game is already horror asymmetrical Fortnite, and videos on Forsaken skins are done to death, so I'll skip past that. All of the milestone skins themselves are great, but the renders of them also tell a story through the render, showing how Cool Kid was raised, and showing its destructive powers. Another great set of milestone skins are 2x, which I'll show and read the descriptions of now as they tell a story. I trusted you more than I've ever trusted in my life. You gave me all sorts of accessories and trinkets to remember you by. You trusted me in the same way that I did with you, so I'm sorry. Then you have Chance's milestone skins, which don't even compare. In his milestone renders, he kinda just gets more red, I guess. Not to say that the skin itself is bad, but they don't really explore the character's story, which is upsetting. I guess you can see Eye Trapped in his milestone 2 render, but you can barely even tell that it is Eye Trapped, and he's not even mentioned in the game at all. So how are you even supposed to know it's Eye Trapped? It's a missed opportunity that the renders don't further highlight his relationship with Eye Trapped, or maybe even how he won Mafioso's rigged game. Characters like Elliot, Builderman, and Shaletsky, although not as bad as Chance's milestone skins, also have a similar issue of having little to no lore substance. Speaking of lore, let's talk about the lore that you can find in-game, which is very little. I understand that the lore will be coming into the game eventually, but most of, if not all of what we know about Forsaken has been stated outside of the game, with the only lore scraps given in-game being the character descriptions, some of the dialogue in-game, cryptic messages in the lobby, and the ARG that no casual player will be bothered to do. Actually, they probably won't even realize that is there at all. I mentioned Eye Trapped in my last point, and another example of lore that we know about, but has zero mention in-game, is 7 and 7 being friends of Noli, which we only know about because it was told to us outside of the game and can be found on the wiki. That being said, I won't dwell on this any longer, considering that the lore will be in the game eventually. Talking about Noli next, this one is debatable, but it's silly that you can easily tell if the generator is a fake by checking for his face on top of the generator. The face in question can easily be seen because of his white eyes and mouth. If you don't know about this, you probably won't ever notice, but if you do know about it, you'll see that it's there every single time, and people who know about the face will only use the face to determine a fake generator instead of any of the other indicators of it being a fake, such as node number skipping, incorrect XP text, or glitchy sounds being emitted from the generator. Removing this face would force survivors to be a lot more mindful when they get on a generator whilst facing Noli, which I believe would make his fake generators an actual threat in more games. Noli's also kinda map dependent, but that can be said for any killer, so I won't complain about that much. But what can be said is the horrid map that I talked about earlier, known as Underground War. I hate this map so much, especially as killer. Every single killer in the game has some kind of disadvantage on this map, which could be said for every map in the game, but I feel this map accentuates that map dependency the most. All of the killers have a rough time on this map, but no other killer in the game has it as bad as 1x1, a killer that excels at sniping people across the map as long as the targets aren't above or below them, and this map has 2 floors and an even higher area that's basically a 3rd floor. It's also a pretty tight map, especially downstairs, making it difficult for killers like Noli to use Void Rush. Another issue on this map can be seen when using John Doe's spikes. The spikes can come to the floor, they don't fully disappear until a few seconds later, which kinda screws either you or a survivor over for no good reason. Speaking of 1x, the killer that's a slot machine according to competitive Forsaken, and honestly I agree, but that's besides the point. Let's talk about Entanglement. Entanglement has a quiet sound cue and is somewhat hard to see unless you have hitboxes turned on, unlike Mass Infection. So I have to have my camera turned towards 1x at all times like I'm an owl just waiting for the animation to start so I can try and dodge it. I personally would give this skill a louder sound cue. It doesn't have to be a global sound cue so it's not a high damaging move like Mass Infection, as well as making the projectile brighter so it's easier to see. An example of this would be 1x's Illumina skin, where the entanglement glows in neon color, similar to Mass Infection. Also, do you guys remember that bug of 1x that had something to do with Noob's light skin preventing Noob's death and still extending the timer for some reason? I'm not sure if that's in the game still, but what I do know is in the game still is a John Doe bug that's most prevalent on Assassins. The bug involves his Corrupt Trail passive, and you know how on Assassins when you tread into the water you get slowness 2 for 2 seconds? Apparently that slowness will persist for as long as your Corrupt Trail remains in the water, meaning you will retain that slowness for way longer than you should. You probably get slowness for most likely 8 entire seconds for stepping over the smallest bits of water. What makes this even worse is that this bug has been in the game since March 18th. Possibly even before that, since I only noticed the bug when John Doe had his long Corrupt Trail for March 18th. And as of writing this bit in the script, it's 3 AM on July 2nd, making this bug at least 3 months old, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I may be no scripting expert, but I'm pretty sure this fix would be less than 10 lines of code. Now let's talk about an important base mechanic, stamina. This one's also debatable, but I don't think it should take longer to regen if you run it to 0. It's annoying and doesn't add too much to the gameplay, only creating a divide between new players who don't know about the mechanic and more experienced players who do know about it. If this were to be removed, newer players would have an easier time with the game, while also solving those frustrating moments when you do run out of stamina on accident. At the very least, they could provide a more clear indicator that your stamina will take longer to regen, like how Pillar Chase 2 causes your character to start breathing more heavily. If this were to be added, it would be a solid addition. I would also like to mention another bug relating to a skin that hasn't been in the game since the 2-time rework dropped, which is the Jock 2-time skin. Basically what the skin would do is have a random jacket color every time you load it into the game, and another random different color when you respawned. This isn't in the game because, according to the wiki, the skin was bugged. How did this even happen, bro? And skin randomization is clearly still possible as indicated by Noob's campsite victim skin, so please give me a good reason as to why the skin still isn't fixed and back into the game. Another thing about 2-time that somehow wasn't addressed after the release was the lack of VFX when you trigger his respawn. It's true that if they respawn nearby you can hear a respawn sound or his highlight if they're far away enough, but it is still jarring that he just vanishes like you're watching a keep inventory instant respawn Minecraft video. All that needs to be done to fix this is to add the same respawn VFX to him just before he respawns and teleports away. Or better yet, just add what my friend said here. While we're talking about 2-time, let's talk about the round timer, not the dagger, because I'm sure other creators already got their point across about how much they hate 2-time's backstabs. The round timer gets around 35 seconds added to it when a survivor is killed. However, this isn't the case for 2-time respawning, which adds no time at all. I swear that there was a message sent in the community server about this months ago, and this still hasn't been added in. Basically, it would just split the time given between both of their lives if it was triggered. Personally, I think that you should just get the full time back when you trigger their respawn and no time back when you kill them for good, but that's just what I think. Adding any sort of time back to their respawn would make them less annoying to deal with, especially when you're running low on time. Transitioning from 2-time back to John Doe, let's talk about his other passive, Unstoppable. The passive is absurdly strong at the start of the game, but basically does nothing once you get to Last Man Standing, which is already where John Doe is at his weakest. Another thing about the passive changes is that it essentially creates a pseudo parry, where you can use 404 air right before getting stunned to get the passive to trigger easily. But this is a thing that only experienced players will know to do, and newer players that don't know about it are stuck with a passive that they don't even know how to trigger, creating yet another divide between the new players and the experienced players, making this easily the worst designed passive in the entire game. The old version of this passive that triggered regardless of what you're doing isn't much better, but with some tweaks it would be better designed than the garbage we have now. If you watched this far, you may have checked out my channel and noticed that I haven't uploaded in 2 years. You might be thinking, this guy comes back just to complain about Forsaken, so what gives? The answer to that is I'm complaining about the game because I'm passionate for the game. I want this game to continue to improve more and more instead of spiraling like Dead by Daylight, which is probably in the worst state it's ever been. I'm excited for Guest 666 and Veronica, and I'm also excited for the insane lore that they'll eventually drop. But it was important to me that I also gave criticism to a game I love, especially on the issues that don't get as much attention as an issue like Hacklord, so I can at least say I tried and maybe even made a difference. Anyways, that's about it for my gripes with Forsaken. If you have any gripes of your own, or hate my takes, feel free to type in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video on them. That's pretty unlikely considering I now upload once every eon. Have a great day, or in case it's a different time for you, a great evening and night. Thanks for watching.